This pain keeps water in the sea. If I weren't so desperate to be free, I'd keep my distance, babe. The more that I know about you, the more that I want you, baby. They say that good love will yield the best from me. I know it to be true. This moment won't last forever. No remedies whatsoever. These feelings we choose to pass on for lesser love. You know it to be true. I'm lost in a manic dream. It weighs on me endlessly. Your tenderness drifts in the wind. The depth of your love is a sin. I'll keep my distance, babe. It's all by design, blinded in the fog of love. Why don't you tell me, baby? What are you dreaming of? Dreaming of? The more that I know about you, the more that I want you, baby. They say that good love will yield the best from me. I know it to be true. This moment won't last forever. No remedies whatsoever. These feelings we choose to pass on for lesser love. You know it to be true.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Anomaly hunter spots alien village on Mars. An anomaly hunter studying NASA photos for possible signs of an ancient extraterrestrial presence on Mars spotted a peculiar pair of formations that he believes are the remnants of an alien village. The weird find was made by indefatigable UFO researcher Scott Waring, who noticed the curious scene in an image that was captured by NASA's Curiosity rover back in 2015. While perusing the photo, his attention was drawn to an odd indentation in a rock that he surmised is, quote, an entrance to an alien structure, close quote, that somewhat resembles homes. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, the home of Night Dreams Talk Radio, with Gary Anderson, syndicated worldwide. Paranormal Talk Radio, like you remember.
Well, here it is, Wednesday already. I hope everybody's had a good week so far. Well, a lot of things in the news today, but we're going to first start off. Well, you know what it is today. It's National Margarita Day. So have a margarita on me. I like it with the salt. I don't know about you, JC, but I like my margaritas with salt.
Yes, salt and a little bit of lime or lemon, rather. Yes.
Okay, it's National Supermarket Day, Employee Day. So if you work in a supermarket, my hat goes off to you, but I don't have a hat. It's also National Ash Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It is Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, well, a vet is actually going to talk to Congress about what he saw about a UFO. And what he said is that a UFO shot down one of our missiles and neutralized 10 of our missiles.
Yeah, listen, there's been a lot of reports about that, but this is a new one. It sounds exciting to hear this. Of course, I bet he was a little bit on the edge of the seat.
Or something, I don't know. Doctors find, you ready for this? A parasite in a 14-year-old boy's brain, the size of a man's fist.
Oh, my, what? That's, a poor kid.
Yeah, I would bet he had one heck of a headache, too, before. That's probably what got the surgery going. But I'll tell you, a parasite the size of a man's fist is really scary. Well, within the Earth's core, scientists now discovered there's an inner core of the inner core.
Oh, my. They're learning something new all the time, not to mention that it stopped.
Yeah, well, they don't know if it's totally stopped. Again, that's what's scary. They don't know what would happen if it stops, because if it totally stopped and doesn't start either reversing or going again, do you know we lose our magnetic field on this planet? That means, you'll be barbecued when you go outside. And a lot of strange things could happen. Scientists just don't know what will happen.
No, and that's something you really don't want to find out, on the fly either, because, listen, who knows what could happen? You're right. The list is endless.
Well, people are reporting in New Mexico they're hearing a hum in their bodies at night.
Oh, they've been reporting hearing hums there for years, but now it's in their body. That's interesting.
Yeah, they're feeling it through their bodies when they go to bed at night.
Yeah, and some people can't feel it, but a lot of people can. That's been something they haven't been able to figure out what's causing that for a long time now.
Well, remember I told you a couple weeks ago, Subway, the sandwich franchise, was going to go up for sale. Well, it is. It's now officially available if you want to buy the whole corporation.
Yeah, it's probably out of my budget, or I would. Plus, I don't have the time to spend to make sandwiches. But yeah, of course.
Well, I can tell you, the person who went to jail, who was their spokesman, was the downturn for, Subway. That. They were doing really fantastic, breaking all records. And then after he went to prison and got convicted for what, Subway never really totally recovered, no matter what they tried.
No, and here we are. They're selling it or sold it.
Well, there's up for sale. Do you want to buy them all?
Yep.
Yeah. Arizona has its own version of Bigfoot, apparently.
Yeah, they do actually. Been more. The sightings have been on the increase with that beast in Arizona.
Oh, yeah. Now, why do you think, well, zebras have the stripes?
I would think camouflage, but I'm sure I'm probably wrong.
Well, it is camouflage in a way to keep the horse flies off of them.
Oh, well, that's interesting. That's an evolutionary kind of thing, and
Yeah, well, maybe we should have stripes.
yeah, right. Hopefully, come up with something against mosquitoes too. But boy, oh boy, that's amazing what nature can do.
Is this the beginning or the end? Scientists are sounding the alarm of Antarctic sea melt is at the record high in 2 years, and the big glacier in Antarctica is about ready to collapse.
Yeah, but isn't that the Doomsday Glacier they call it? I believe. But didn't they just have record highs? What 2-3 years ago in the 60s or 70s there?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, they sure did. Oh, you were right about the meteor, by the way. It was 1,000 pounds. The meteor hit the Earth in Texas, traveling at 27,000 miles per hour. It was equal to about 8 tons of TNT.
Yeah, give you an example. The average bullet travels at 1,800 miles an hour, and it's as tiny as your thumbnail. Can you imagine the kinetic injury or energy when that hit the Texas? Hopefully, it didn't. Well, I guess nobody got hurt, but boy, it could have been a disaster.
Well, China and the United States are, well, very close to, well, maybe going to war. The stage is being set for a potential war.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to hear. That's a lose-lose for everybody. I mean, come on.
It is. Now, we talked about, disclosure, and everybody's talking about disclosure. And, the whole point of disclosure is we're never going to be told the truth.
No, they can't. Too many heads would roll. Plus, look at all the trillions of dollars have been allocated for that, and a lot of answers. No, they're never going to come out with that. You're right.
Well, I'm right on this. Going back to SETI, they are looking for radio waves coming from ETs, and they have claimed, because we've had Seth on our show a couple of times, they have never recorded anything that was ET. Well, you know what? That is not true. Now, when you think that our organization is not being funded by the government.
No.
And now they are being untruthful to the public. I want you to hear this. This is a tape that I got back from my friend Art Bell back when he was doing Midnight in the Desert. We would talk a lot, and he sent me this tape, and I think everybody needs to hear this.
Because this is enough years after it happened. A few years ago, there was a show called Coast to Coast with Art Bell. And it was on the cover of Time magazine, and I was one of his favorite guests. And when I'd be on that show, it really lit things up at certain agencies. And one time I was on his show, and a few years back, towards the end of his career there, and this issue came up, and I said, well, I have a source high up in SETI that confirms to me that they, in fact, have received interplanetary signals, but in a kind of phased, not normal array. It was kind of a pulsed array, and that it was kept secret and covered up. And the SETI people were furious. Subsequently, Seth Shostak got on the show and just said, well, Dr. Aaron knew what he's talking about, and he probably talked to some volunteer computer operator, because we have all this network of volunteers. What Art Bell didn't know, and what Seth Shostak didn't know, and which I'm going to say now because it's enough water gone under the bridge, is that the guy who told me that was the founder of the SETI project and the Drake equation, Dr. Drake. He told me that they had that contact. Moreover, a man who had been one of Carl Sagan's best friends, the best man at his wedding, confirmed it.
Well, right there, it is alarming because, again, you would think this organization they're trying to discover radio signals coming out from wherever to try to prove that maybe there's life out there. And when they are lying, you think the government is going to tell us, the population, the truth. It's not going to happen. So here they got a signal that came from a different planet. And again, they covered it up. They lied about it. And again, it's like what you hear from the government about, the balloons. It's out of control right now, people. It really is. We had these balloons being shot down. Well, the one balloon club, they had $12 invested in a balloon, and we spent $388,000 to shoot it down. It makes you wonder what is going on out here. We're not being told the truth. And I just don't think it's going to be, the truth is going to be coming anytime in the near future. You got people like Steve Bassett. Well, guess what? Disclosure is going to be right around the corner, in 2 weeks, 2 months. I've been hearing that going on now for 16 years, and I haven't got any disclosure yet. All these people who keep writing books about ufology, about disclosure is around the corner. Well, that hasn't happened. The reason why it isn't happening, because the government is not going to step forward and tell us the truth. Now, an organization, it was set up like SETI to, do research on radio waves from from out there. If they can't tell us the truth, who are you going to believe? JC, think about that one.
Oh, I've been thinking about it. You listen, the thing about SETI, it's all private donations. It's not, like you say, NASA run or government run. And so they're lying to us. And listen, Frank Drake of the Drake's Equation, the founder of it, I mean, listen, why would he lie about now in defense of Seth and the people who work there? He might have lied to them too. I don't know. But that tells you right there, if they're lying, sure, the government's lying. Nobody's ever going to. Why they keep holding all this back? And that's the big thing Dr. Greer's on. Hopefully get him back on here soon. But he's exposing all these agencies that's holding back all this technology and like that signal. That's ridiculous, Gary.
Oh, yeah. I bet you they are in communications with ET. I just have that feeling. And again, they don't want the American public or the world public to even understand that we are in that situation of making these communications back and forth. I'm telling you, it is really nerve-wracking when you think about it. And then you think about the people who go missing. You think about people that claim they were abducted, people that claim they were implanted. And now SETI, which, I always put them up on the platform on the top. After I heard this, it makes me just really I untrustworthy of them anymore.
Oh, yeah. And listen, that was money from us, the American people. We're not getting our money's worth.
No, we're not. Well, the people who donate aren't getting their money. Well, how would you like to have a girlfriend and you get in a fight and she bites off your nose?
Oh, boy. No, thank you, please.
Now, it's better than your penis. That has happened too,
Yeah, I remember that story back in the 90s. That was incredible.
We'll be back right after this break with our guest. We got Aaron Long. We're going to talk about ancient aliens that ruled the earth. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio. Give us a big thumbs up if you're on chat, and make sure you use chat for what it's for. And that is, well, to ask questions about the show.
Tangled up in your sheets, I'm leaving traces of golden. Yeah, when you're holding me, no, I probably sound like I'm losing my mind, but I swear every time you look in my eyes, my head feels like a fountain overflowing, going upside down. Giving me more heart, sky higher than mountains. Kind of love could turn me inside out. I wanna be yours. Ooh, ooh. you got a pull on me. No, I probably look like I'm losing my mind, but I swear every time your hands in mine, my head feels like a fountain overflowing, going upside down. Giving me more heart, sky higher than mountains. Kind of love could turn me inside out. I wanna be yours.
Hi, this is Val Von Torn of Metatron Power and Light. You're listening to Gary Anderson and Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Pyramids and the Great Floods is a must-get, must-read, fascinating new book by John Shaughnessy. Discover the purpose of the global pyramids and how an advanced Type 3 society used them to control global floods and reduce the impact of instant ice ages. In 1997, a geologist discovered 30 times the Earth's surface oceans located below the upper mantle, the source of Noah's floodwaters. While cataclysm researchers have been looking to the heavens for the doomsday catalyst, it turns out that all the while, it's been right under our very feet. Hell really is down below. Pyramids and the Great Floods describes in full detail how ancient past societies used the global pyramids to lower the damage of floods. You will be amazed. Pyramids and the Great Floods by John Shaughnessy. Get it now on Amazon in paperback and on Amazon Kindle. Beaming to you like a whirlwind. In syndication and on all the apps worldwide. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network.
And we are back. We got a great guest here tonight. Why don't you tell the listeners, JC, about our guest?
Well, our guest, Aaron Long, has always been fascinated with the stars from a very early age, and he would often ponder about life out there. Now, this led Aaron in his adult life to research and run many ancient alien groups.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Well, Aaron, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God? Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
I really appreciate you having me on tonight.
Well, are you been staying out of trouble?
I think so, Gary. Yeah, it's early in the UK. It's 3:15 a.m. in the UK. Yeah, I'm awake and I'm ready to go, Gary.
Okay. Do you drink tea or coffee?
I drink both, but tonight I'm definitely drinking coffee.
That will do that. I do that a lot at my age. You know, it just started hitting me a couple months ago. You know, right. I would be watching TV. It doesn't matter what time it is, Aaron. It could be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm sleeping. And, you know, maybe
yeah, no, definitely.
I'm going back to the early age. Hopefully, I don't have to start going into diapers next.
I'll pray for you, Gary.
Well, how have you been besides that in ufology in the UK? What is going on there?
Yeah, there's a lot going on regarding the UFO subject at the moment. There's a big conference coming up, the Awakening Conference in Manchester, in August for 3 days. It's once a year. It's a huge, huge conference. Many guest speakers there. Daryl Sims is there. I knew that you had him on the other night, so he's at the conference.
Oh, yeah, Daryl is really, he rocks, I'll tell you that. We had Absolutely. A very interesting conversation when he was on. You know, I was going through my old cassettes here the other day. Yeah. And, you know, Art Bell was a friend of mine, and I found one where Dr. Greer was saying that SETI, you know who SETI is, they're the ones that right. they lied to the American public, that they claim that they have never received any ET signals. And Dr. Greer knows the person who started SETI, the doctor, right. And he had a conversation with the doctor, and they did get a signal from a planet, from ET. But he didn't divulge what the topic was to Dr. Greer. But even, you know, put it this way, when the doctor got married, his best friend, or when Carl Sagan got married, his mm-hmm. best friend was, you know, again, a good friend of the doctor who started SETI and verified the story that, yes, SETI got this communication from ET, from another world. And here, if you can't even trust SETI and you can't trust the world's governments, who can you trust?
That's exactly it, Gary. Especially in this day and age now, where we're inundated with, narrative media, narrative-based media. You just don't know who to turn to and who to trust and what to listen to. And you really got to cherry pick nowadays. I
know. What got you into, ufology? What got you into ancient aliens?
So in a nutshell, Gary, I don't want to take up too much of your time with this. I went to Catholic school, and as I've said on previous podcasts and interviews, etc., I always walked away with more questions than I did answers, and I would always be reprimanded, when I would ask the teachers, what I was being taught. I've always been taught to question what you're taught, so to speak. And like I said, I would usually be reprimanded for that. And it was, I read religious texts from a very early age. And, for me, none of it added up until I came across the great Eric von Daniken, of course. And it was my dad that put me on to Eric von Daniken and his obviously best-selling book, Chariots of the Gods. And that pretty much changed my life and answered most of the questions that I had as a child. So.
Well, even when I think about like the Great Sphinx or the pyramids and all that, we talk about it quite a bit on the show. We've had people on the show, the pyramids were nothing more than a water pump or this or that. I don't buy that. And put it this way, unless we have been rebooted numerous times and we lost our technology, I don't think humans at the time, especially the Great Sphinx was built, to be able to have created it. I just don't think we did. And, Aaron, humans had to believe in some type of God. The God of Olympus, the God of the fire, God of the ocean, whatever the God of, they had to believe in God. And, it makes me wonder, were we created by a race of ETs?
Well, that's what hopefully we're going to get into tonight, Gary. Because before it was singular, it was plural, which meaning we were created in their image and in their likeness.
Well, I really feel that way. I mean, let's face it. They couldn't have built the pyramids. They had to create a race of, I hate to say it, of workers to have created all this stuff.
They did indeed, Gary. Yeah, I don't know when you want me to touch on that.
Well, right now, let's have some fun here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if I start off, Gary, by saying, many people, when we think of the word legend, we tend to think fantasy and myth. But most would be wrong, because the word legend derives from the medieval Latin legenda, which means things to be read. So in essence, it's a popular story handed down from earlier times whose truth hasn't yet been ascertained. Legend simply means a traditional oral or written history, which has not been confirmed by science. However, much of it, as we're going to go into tonight, is being validated by modern science.
Well, you're absolutely right. Again, here's the problem. A lot of people, if they don't see it, they don't believe it.
Yeah.
But again, like I got in trouble the other night. I was talking to a friend of mine and, he says, well, ETs don't exist. We're the only life out there. There's no life out there. And I said, do you believe in God? Yes, I believe in God. And I said, well, prove it.
Yeah,
show me God.
Exactly.
Show me a photograph of God. Give me some proof that God actually existed. And what God was it? He couldn't.
Yeah, well, I think they both tie in together, Gary, and a lot of it's been misinterpreted. And I don't know when you want me to touch on the creation of man. If you want me to touch on that now briefly or go into detail, it's completely up to you.
Well, let's go into it now. Let's get heavy with the people.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the Atra Hasis, I don't know if you're aware of the Atra Hasis, Gary.
A little bit, but go ahead, and the listeners, they're the ones that might not be.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a group of beings called the Igigi or Igigi. It's Igigi, however you want to pronounce it. And they were said to have been half man and half animal. And they were the younger servants to the Anunnaki. Most people are familiar with the Anunnaki by now, I expect. These servants toiled in the Akkadian paradise within the Atrahasis epic. And I quote, and this is directly from the Atrahasis, Gary. When the gods, manlike, bore the labour, carried the load, the gods' load was great. The toil grievous, the trouble excessive. The great Anunnaki, the seven, were making the Igigi undertake the toil. So following this, the Igigis rebelled. And, they basically turned around and said, we're not carrying out this heavy labour anymore. We've had enough. And they eventually refused to carry out the labour of the Anunnaki. And it was then that modern man was fashioned to replace the Igigi. And I'm taking a shot in the dark here. It's just my hunch. I am suspecting that this group of beings, the Igigi, or the Igigi, however you want to say it, were the 200 fallen angels who also rebelled within biblical texts.
It's a very good possibility on that, Aaron.
Yeah. Just bear with me, Gary. So then, then we have, following that in the Atrahasis epic, and it's interesting to note that in both the Atrahasis and the Bible, both state that man was fashioned from clay. So they both agree on that. So in the Atrahasis as well, going back to that, the goddess Namu and mother of Enki asks her son to create human beings so as to act as servants for the gods. So in essence, we were created as servants to those gods. And then this is again from the Atrahasis. O my son Enki, rise from your bed and work your wisdom. Fashion servants of the gods in their own likeness. O my mother, the creature whose name you uttered shall exist. Attribute to it the likeness of the gods. Mix the heart of clay, which is over the abyss. You, the good and princely craftsman, will work the clay. You shall bring the limbs into existence as Ninmah, who, and by the way, for the listeners, Ninmah is otherwise known as Ninhursag. Supervises you. The goddess of birth will stand by you as you fashion your creations. O my mother, decree it's the newborn's fate. Ninmah will attribute to it the mold of the gods, for it is man. These texts are far, far older than any biblical text that most people are familiar with. So we have to assume that the Bible, and I don't want to offend any religion here whatsoever. I respect all religion. I don't want to offend anyone's religion. I just want to get that across. But we have to assume that the Bible took these stories and broke them down.
Well, Aaron, let's be honest here. People have to believe in God. Because, that's what keeps our civilization going. We wouldn't be here if we didn't believe in God.
Absolutely.
But, when I was a child, I remember going up to my grandmother or my mother. I can't remember which one. I said, well, who is God? And they got really upset. Well, don't ever ask that. But what created God? Don't ask that. But why you tell me not to ask that? Because I don't have an answer for you, and you could drive yourself insane trying to figure it out. The whole point is people have to believe in something. And, our human race, we don't know what God created the human race. Did a God of superpowers create us? Or was it a race of beings that created us? We don't know. We can surmise. But again, I'm going to be on the safe side because I'm at the age I'm going to be going either to heaven or hell. Eventually, I'm going to say there's a God. But then the other logical part of me says that doesn't make sense because if you go back through history, going back as far as we can go, that it just doesn't compute. You have the Mayas, the Incas, you have the pyramids, you have the Sphinx, which is way older than any pyramid. And
with Dr. Robert Schoch, proved that.
And what created it? I mean, how could they have created it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, you know, like I said at the start of the show, Gary, when people say, "Oh, it's just myth, it's just legend," we have, you know, what the verses and paragraphs that I've just read to you and the audience. We have cylinder seals depicting these actions. So, you know, such revelations can be seen depicted on countless cylinder seals where the human being is fashioned by Enki and Ninmah. We can also see cylinder seals such as the Temptation seal, as it's been dubbed, of course. This particular seal can be seen in the British Museum today with its 7-branched tree of knowledge. The 7 branches are also present on altars in most churches, and what they represent is the menorah of Judaism, which is, you know, obviously they serve as candle holders, but they represent the 7 branches of knowledge. And you know, so we have cylinder seals 4,500 years old depicting these you know, these actions that I've just read out to you. So,
well, yeah, again, I don't. I'm going to get people mad at me. But, you know, I've seen the movie about Moses. I've seen the movie about Adam and Eve. I was told about Adam and Eve when I went to, what do you call it, church and all that stuff. I was brought up, well, my family, a big hunk of them was Mennonite and, you know, very religious. But, you know, I sit there and I look at it, it doesn't make logical sense that, okay, well, you know, what created Adam and Eve, and you talk about the ribs, and you talk about this. To me, it seems like, again, I'm going to stress, there was an alien race that came down to this planet. Let's face it, this planet is beautiful. This planet has riches of this unimaginable riches. Think about going back thousands and tens of thousands of years ago. Think about the amount of gold, platinum, and all the riches of this earth that, you know, an alien race, you know, could have loved, and they came here to mine our planet. And that's where they created workers to be able to, you know, mine the gold, the platinum, the silver.
Exactly. And that's, you know, why the Anunnaki were said to have come here, you know, according to Zachariah Sitchin, over 450,000 years ago. We also see evidence within South Africa of high-end mining of gold. So again, you know, is that just a coincidence, or?
I don't think so, because look at the Mayas and the Incas, and when the Spaniards came, you know, and they did their thing of torture, you know, stealing their riches, right?
Absolutely.
If you think, why did they have gold? Why did they worship gold? Well, maybe if they were workers and they were working in, you know, caves mining gold for the ETs, then they realized that gold was precious.
Yeah, then I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Gary, but especially in pre-dynastic Egypt, it was said that Thoth ingested gold. A lot of the gods ingested monatomic gold. It was described as white drops, also referred to as liquid gold, and it was readily available today, which I don't know if a lot of people know that, but you can, you know, purchase monatomic gold now for quite a hefty price. References to this elixir can be found within the Holy Quran, for example, in Surah 18, the Qadir, and also within the mysterious Nag Hammadi codices. It tells you that the gods ingested this elixir for everlasting life and the chase for immortality. I don't know anyone want me to get into that, but yeah.
Yeah, well, look at this. Look at the mummies they have found in Egypt in the pyramids and non-pyramids, okay? When they have gone through an x-ray, they found their insides had gold in them.
They did indeed, Gary.
Yeah. And that tells you, again, they thought gold would take them into the afterlife, not having it just in their coffin with them, but actually being put in place of their body gold.
Yeah. Exactly. So, once again, we have text describing this, and then we see physical evidence supporting it.
Yeah. So again, I think we need to reevaluate how man was really created.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even, speaking about immortality, it was as if, in the old world, which was a whole different place to what we're seeing now, the oxygen levels were a lot higher. For example, going back to the obsession of immortality and the god's immortality, I don't know if you're aware of the Epic of Gilgamesh.
No, why don't you explain that to me and to the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. So archaeologists unearth remains of ancient cities in the region between and around the two rivers Euphrates and Tigris, which are described within the Book of Genesis. So it's interesting to note that the Book of Genesis, does describe these ancient Sumerian cities. They're extremely important advanced cities such as Eridu, and Uruk. They're commonly known in the Bible as Uret. So you can see the similarities in dialogue here. It was in these cities which suddenly arose by master engineers, and we have to call them master engineers because they're astronomically aligned most of the time. They literally came out of nowhere. And along with that came a written language materialized on clay tablets known most commonly today as cuneiform. Gigantic megalithic ziggurats were also erected with perfect precision, completely defying the primitive tools ascribed for the time. And we also have to remember that they created a damn near perfect irrigation system. I mean, Sumeria was the cradle of civilization, and it shows with these with these statistics.
Well, Aaron, I just want to jump in here. You mentioned with primitive tools. How could they have done what they've done with brass and copper tools?
It's absolutely insane. I mean, I regularly speak to a geologist, Russian geologist known as Alexander Koltipin. His work is extraordinary. He's running exhibitions this year and also, taking exhibitions next year as well. And he's telling us that a lot of these megalithic structures are from the Neogene period, which was over 300 million years ago. And this is a 30-year geologist, coming out with this. But yeah, getting back to what I was reading, Gary.
Yeah.
Hugely populated cities served as platforms upon which the dwelling places of those sky gods stood. Or they are also known as the lofty ones, as they're so commonly referred to. With all this in mind, in 1872, an Akkadian linguist by the name of George Smith began the arduous task of translating a tablet from the 7th century BC. This tablet would end up telling the story of Gilgamesh. Lucky for us, because it is an absolute incredible book. For all you listeners out there, if you've not read the Epic of Gilgamesh, I strongly urge you to search this knowledge out. It's readily available to anybody.
Can you break it down shortly what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically, in short, it's about a legendary hero king of Uruk. And Gilgamesh lived centuries after the flood as well. And he was in search of, and forgive me if I mispronounced the name, is a pretty hard name to get right. It's Utnapishtim. It's a hard name to say, but he was in search of this deity. What Gilgamesh was obsessed with was the search for everlasting life, mortality, because Gilgamesh was a demigod. So half man, half god. So he was not granted everlasting, immortal life, as it were. And so here we have this hero from the city of Uruk chasing Utnapishtim, who's interestingly also known as Noah within the Bible and Zayasudra within Sumerian texts. So, we'll get onto the flood in a minute if you want to, Gary. But in short, Gilgamesh was searching for a box thorn-like plant which grew at extreme depths within the ocean bed.
Very interesting.
Yeah, he was searching for this box thorn-like plant that, if if you could attain this plant, you would be granted everlasting life, so to speak. So, going back to Thoth and the liquid gold, we've got references in Greek mythology of, foods and drinks of the gods. Ambrosia was said to have come from the horn of a magical goat, which gave immortality to the god Zeus. We've got Zoroastrian and Vedic legends reference to a drink prepared by extracting juices from the stalks of certain plants, which are unknown to us today. The special drink was known as soma and hoama, and again, that gave everlasting life. So we have constant references to elixirs that give immortality.
Well, you never know. Remember that TV show and movie Highlander?
I do, yeah. I've not seen too much of it, but I know what you're talking about, Gary. Yeah.
Could you imagine living forever?
I've not imagined it, but yeah, it's definitely a thought. Eh?
Now, again, if any of these people or humanoids that were granted to live forever, 2 to 1, they're not on this planet.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you look at the story of the prophet Enoch. He's only mentioned twice within the Bible, but he was within the Bible it states that he was taken by God, and that's all you hear from him. But when you read the actual books of Enoch from him, again, he didn't see a mortal death on earth. He was taken by God, same as the prophet Elijah, who went up in a fiery chariot.
Yeah, again, the more we talk about this, the more I am confused. I know I got some people who are upset with me because, I'm not saying God doesn't exist. I just don't know what God really is. And, again, I think back what my grandmother and my mother said, you really can't think about it because it will drive you insane. But I just think about how man started and all these civilizations that have come and gone. And why? What happened to them? Do you have any idea what happened to these ancient civilizations on Earth?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you asked that question, Gary. It's a great question. I don't know if you're aware of the Sumerian king list.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So the Sumerian king list is an intriguing list. It's from early Mesopotamia, and what's really mind-boggling about this king list is that the kings were reigning from 28,800 years all the way to 36,000 years in each territory. So, and the interesting thing is, as time moves forward, the years of reign become a lot shorter. To sort of, they go to 900 years, then they go to 36 years and 10 years, and etc. But going back before the flood, we're looking at 28,800 years and 36,000 years and above. So what does this mean? I mean, it's incredible, to be honest. We've got for example, we've got in Eridu, Alulim reigned for 28,800 years, and Alagar reigned for 36,000 years. So 2 kings combined ruled for a total of 64,800 years. Is that a typo by whoever put the text on the clay tablet? I don't think so, because they got the dates right as time moved forward.
Well, it makes you wonder. Some people say that actually the year was different than our year. And that's why when you hear that they reign for these many thousands a year, it wasn't. That was, maybe days or not. I don't know. I do think at one point mankind did live a lot longer than we live now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've got, Methuselah, who lived for, in excess of, according to the Bible, in excess of 900 years. A lot of the biblical patriots really did live long ages, if we take those numbers literally.
Well, this is interesting. What do you feel? Do you feel we are children of the stars?
I'm not 99%, I'm 100% convinced, Gary, yeah. I believe that our origins are from the stars. And I mean, I'm utterly convinced through all my research throughout the years that we are of intelligent design and not accidental design. I spoke to many people over the years, and I've heard a reference to, it's like, throwing the pieces of an iPhone onto the floor and expecting it to just build itself. And that's exactly the same with the human genome and genetic sequence. It's just too complex to happen by accident, Gary.
Well, if you look about going back, the most ancient humanoids they've found to mankind, they just recently found another one, thousands of years older than what the previous one was. But again, to go from that to a humanoid that could think and function, that is a big step. And I do think there was manipulation in our DNA in genes to create our human race.
Well, it's great that you say that, Gary. And I've got something I want to add on to that. I've made a note of it here. Just bear with me 2 minutes. We'll grab this note.
While you're looking at, well, we need to go on break. Why don't we go on break? And then when you come back, that'll give you enough time to, we can discuss it.
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect, Gary. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio on chat. Why don't you tell me, do you believe that God was an ET of another race that came down on our earth and then created mankind as slaves, as workers? Or do you think God just materialized and then created, the universe? I don't know. It's really confusing because regardless, if you really think about the Sphinx or the pyramids, the Mayas, the Incas, the civilizations that came and gone, the technology they had, which was so outstanding that we can't even duplicate it to today. It just tells me, boy, we have had help.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Magic drug restores lost memories and unleashes hidden knowledge. An FDA-approved asthma drug, some are calling magic, has shown the ability to restore lost memories and reveal previously hidden knowledge. A similar recovery of seemingly inaccessible memories was also demonstrated using optogenetic therapy. But the relatively safe drug is non-invasive and equally successful. If proven effective, this novel approach could offer a new ray of hope for millions suffering from conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's. Or simply help everyday people remember critical elements of their lives, lost to the passage of time. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com.
What's there to hold in the light of this moon? My mind keeps searching, but my heart decides. Thoughts can be cruel, they're not mine to own. The space unravels when you let go. What's yours in mine? That energy goes today. The feather in the fire will blow it home your way. Moon mother, open your arms. Moon mother, this madness has begun. Moon mother, reach for my heart so I can feel your essence in me.
Hi, this This is Val Von Torn of Metatron Power and Light. You're listening to Gary Anderson and Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Digital Broadcasting Radio, like it should be. The best in paranormal talk radio, with your host, Gary Anderson.
And we are back with Aaron. Did that give you enough time to get that research you needed?
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. I've got the info right at hand now. So yeah, going back to the question of our genetics and our origins, every one of us, we have telomeres, which are structures made from DNA sequences and proteins found at the end of our chromosomes. So simply put, they are caps for the chromosome, which serve as a protector. If you can imagine a bit of plastic on the end of a shoelace, so to speak, it prevents it from fraying, right?
Right, yes.
So yeah, in short, telomeres length to shorten with age. So progressive shortening of telomere length leads to oncogenic transformation of somatic cells. So, which in layman's terms, it means affecting the health and lifespan of an individual. So the shorter the telomere, the shorter the lifespan, if that makes sense, Gary, right?
Well, it does, yes. And you know, again, you think about our lifespan is so short compared to, you know, again, you know, I'm not going to go medieval times because that was really short. But if you go back to biblical times or pre-biblical times, the human life was a long life.
Yeah, antediluvian and pre-flood civilizations lived at very, very long ages. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so going back to the telomeres, Gary, if that's okay. Studies have showed that telomere length can be maintained in a positive way by consuming nuts, seaweed, fruit, and coffee, surprisingly. Like coffee. I didn't expect coffee, but there you go. Quicker telomere shortening has been linked to high levels of alcohol consumption, red meat, and smoking. So, you know, if you're consuming those sorts of things, you're going to live a shorter lifespan, so to speak. So what happens is telomeres shorten with each cell division, but when they reach a critical length, the cell stops dividing or dies. Every one of us has this, so it's pretty much like an internal clock, so to speak. But before the Great Flood, our ancestors' internal clocks were ticking a lot slower than of today.
Oh, they were, and that's the whole point. Look how old Moses was when he passed on. And you look at the biblical time of the, you know, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of years, not, you know, even like I was reading in the journal, the science journal the other day, they said at one point in the near future, they might, if you're lucky enough, be able to live up to 114 if you're a man, 115.5 if you're a woman.
Yeah, it's again, Gary, it's like, it's great that you say these things. It's just meant to be, I guess. So adding on to what you just said then about age, scientists have in fact found a way to lengthen telomeres by as much as 1,000 nucleotides, which means that we, or they, should I say, can extend significant numbers of years in these cells. So in essence, they have found a major breakthrough regarding extending human life and the aging process.
Well, do you think the gods or ETs or whatever you want to call them, at one point they detuned the humanoids from living a long period of life?
Again, Gary, I think you've hit the nail on the head. If we were created in their image, then of course we have to assume or entertain the idea that our seemingly otherworldly creators, which they were, would have known all about those telomeres in us. And our overall genetic makeup, basically, for it was they who possessed the blueprint for fashioning.
Interesting. Now, again, I want to get into this, and I know this is probably a little bit out of what you want to talk about, but, you know, if you look at the Mayas or the Incas and all the Egyptian and in pre-Egyptian, you know, civilizations that have come and gone,
mm-hmm.
Again, it seems like they go to a certain level and then they disappear. You know, like the Mayas, the Incas, they don't even know what happened to them, what ended their civilization. Again, if you think about even, if you look at the Egyptians, the pyramids, well, most of those pyramids were even built before that civilization existed.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go on record, Gary, to say that those pyramids are, a minimum of 10,500 years old. If you go by Sumerian texts and the Lost Book of Enki, depending on, the translations by Zachariah Sitchin, I know he has his critics, so I think he's put out some fantastic work. We have references to Ningishida, who could be linked to Thoth or could be Thoth, building skyward structures towards the heavens, lofty peaks as they were. Are they describing the pyramids here? Because it's interesting to note that the Egyptians were notorious for inscribing their structures. If they built a monolith, they would inscribe it and put their name all over it. Yet on the pyramids, we have absolutely nothing. We have nothing.
Well, again, if you think about the pyramids, I've had so many experts through the years, and I've been doing this going on 50 years, and none of the experts can tell me. They can surmise the most ridiculous ideas how the pyramids were created. And if you look at that, the technology of humans at that time didn't have the technology to, one, transport those big blocks where the pyramids are. That's one. They couldn't have done it. Impossible. Regardless how many slaves they had, it would have been impossible to do it. The second thing is to be able to cut those blocks so accurate that we can't even do it today. Technology doesn't exist in our world to cut blocks that accurate. And that I know from talking to back a few years ago to the one of the engineers at Flow Industries, who perfected cutting, cement, cutting blocks with high water pressure. They were the most accurate on our time frame, and they can't cut anything as accurate as like that. And then you look at the Sphinx, which is way older than any of the pyramids.
Yeah,
and again,
for one, the Sphinx shows water erosion, and significant rainfall hasn't fallen in Egypt for at least 10,500 years. So we have physical evidence to suggest the Sphinx is thousands of years older than before the Egyptians were even thought about.
I heard it's about 10,000 years older, and again, the water wear marks on the Sphinx wasn't created from rain. It was underwater. For years, some people try to, it was from the sand. No, it was not. It was from being underwater. So Absolutely. If you think about it, and then, if you look at the Sphinx, that's not the original head. That has been changed, down after thousands of years after it was created. Another civilization changed the structure of it.
I'm 100% in agreement with you there, Gary. That is without a doubt not the original head. No.
So we have all this technology and we can't duplicate it. And you look at whatever lost civilization it was on this planet, had to have technology far superior than us to be able, again, to transport those big blocks to build the pyramids, to be able to put it together so accurately without using some type of cement or some way to fasten it. It was put together because it was so accurate. And then again, I think about it, to be able to build it up as high as it was, as big as it is, it was impossible unless it was some race that had superpowers. And when I'm talking about superpowers, I think that they were the gods. They were the ETs that came to this earth. And I'm really going to say this. I don't think the pyramids were water pumps, because you got pyramids from the Mayas, Incas, all around the world. There's pyramids.
Yeah, we have a global pattern of pyramids all over the planet. These architects and engineers and builders, they were global. They were advanced global traveling civilizations. And, we only got to look at the, in Egypt, Zep Tepi, the time when the gods walked among men. You know, it was during these crucial times that these pyramids would have sprung up. And Egypt, interestingly, was known as the Isle of Chem, which is where the word chemistry derives from. You couldn't just rock up in Egypt, you know, as anybody. You had to sort of turn up in Egypt with something to offer them in return for knowledge. It was an exchange place for knowledge.
And you're right. Now, I will say this too. Think about this. I don't believe the Egyptians built the pyramids. I think they were there. You know, people say, "Oh, that's where, you know, the pharaohs had them built for their tomb." That's not true. They utilized those pyramids as their tombs because those were basically empty buildings. When that race came, that they were there so much before the pharaohs even walked the earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. You've hit the nail on the head, and you're spot on. These structures were already there, and the civilization simply rediscovered these structures, and they also built on top of them. A perfect example of this is in Lebanon, the massive block that's been, you know, when you look at a lot of these temples, there's I can't recall at the moment the exact name of this temple. You got the 150-ton block. So if you look at the megalithic work, it's perfect. And then you have the Romans, which have built on top of that work, which is, you know, no disrespect to the Romans, is quite shoddy compared to the perfect, precise megalithic work which lies underneath. The same in Peru. You
gotta admit one thing: the Romans knew how to make cement.
They did. They did.
Yeah. Well, you know, they just broke that a couple of weeks ago. Some scientists figured out how. They've been trying to figure out for decades and centuries, how did the Romans make cement that actually got stronger as it ages? And they found out how they did it. And it was a big shock, and it was not that hard to figure out. But, you know, scientists have been trying to figure it out forever, but they just broke it. And that is really interesting. But again, how did the Romans have this technology? How did these races, you know, build what they built? You know, if you look at all the temples and the Colosseum of the Romans and all that stuff, they got that idea from the gods.
Of course they did, yeah. Yeah, they simply built on top of the megalithic work which was already there. An excellent researcher and explorer, Bream Forrester, he touches a lot on these subjects.
So where do you honestly feel, Aaron, that mankind originated? Did man originate from the stars, or did a race of humanoids come to Earth and create the human race?
I would have to go with the quote unquote gods arriving on Earth, creating us in their image. So I have to say that we did originate on Earth. However, you know, we do have alien DNA, so to speak. You know, we have their DNA, but we were fashioned on Earth. That's just my opinion.
That is my feeling. Have you ever surmised? Have you ever thought, Aaron, what happened to these gods? What did they leave the Earth because maybe they were done mining our planet for its riches, or maybe the humanoids got out of control and they left because they couldn't control the humans anymore?
Well, it's interesting, Gary, that you say that. When Alexander the Great arrived, it was as if a complete breakdown of society where harmonious ways of living had collapsed. Megalithic wonders had stopped, and a decline in spirituality was seemingly obvious. A once close relationship with the stars and constellations ceased to exist, and decoration eventually replaced construction and astronomical alignment. So somewhere along the lines, you know, these magnificent astronomically aligned megalithic structures ceased to exist, and they exist. Obviously, they still stand. They were built to last forever, but the building, the continual building of these megalithic structures stopped. So I believe the gods did leave. And there was a complete breakdown in society.
I think that was true, and I think the God. That's why we had the flood to, cleanse the planet.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've got time to really quickly touch on this, Gary, with the flood.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's interesting because when we think of Noah's Ark, like I said earlier, Noah had numerous names within different ancient texts, depending on which text you read. He was known as Sudra, as well as Noah, of course. But I don't know if you're aware of this, Gary. Within the trying to pronounce it right, Svalbard Global Seed Vault. That's a seed vault in Norway, which houses more than 930,000 varieties of food crops. It's essentially a safety deposit box in case of a global catastrophe, and that's what I believe the Ark was. I don't believe it was. I don't believe Noah had two types of animals each on this vessel. I'm going to call it a vessel because it was huge, and we have cylinder seals depicting this vessel as well with crates. So we're not just reading texts of an ark. We have ancient Sumerian cylinder seals depicting this ark. But I believe it was a seed bank, and it was for preservation of following the Great Flood.
Interesting. Well, why don't you tell us from the heart what you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. Regarding the flood, Gary, or just in general?
In general.
In general. So I believe that history will repeat itself. I believe that the gods will return. I'm utterly and 1,000,000% convinced that they will return. Within every ancient culture worldwide, they speak of the gods returning. Eric von Daniken has said this for most of his life. He obviously broke new ground with Chariots of the Gods and paved the way for all of us. But yeah, I believe they will return, and that day is, rapidly approaching. We've reached that complete breakdown in society. We've reached the Sodom and Gomorrah stage, in my personal opinion. We've lost our connection with the stars, and I think we've lost. We don't even know who we are anymore. We're so consumed by technology that we've just lost touch of the earth and its, magnificent surroundings.
Where do you see the future of Earth, the humans?
To be honest, Gary, as I sit here with you right now, I don't see it ending very well. I believe we will carry on, and I believe the Earth will always be here. But I think a great how do I explain it? I think like in biblical times, I think there will be a global catastrophe. Graham Hancock so rightfully puts it that we go through a Taurid meteor stream. I think he said a few times per year, and it's basically like crossing the motorway blindfolded, and that's what the Earth goes through, a few times a year. So we are in essence a sitting duck for a global catastrophe, and I don't think we're prepared for that.
I don't, and that is what I'm really concerned about. We have not learned from the past.
No,
we haven't. And that's what's scary, because, again, if you go back to the ancients, we have been warriors, and we haven't learned our lesson.
No, it's tragic, Gary. It really is. I mean, we've got so much more to learn, and most, I always say that knowledge is readily available to the one who searches. It is not freely. It's not freely given to you. If you rely on the media and so forth, without going into too much detail and heavy into that, the national curriculum isn't going to just give you that on a plate. You need to search for knowledge. It is searched for.
That is the interesting thing. We are running out of time. Is there anything else you want to share to the listeners, Aaron? Well, first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of the listeners. I want to thank the truckers, the late night truckers in the USA right now, who keep your country going. If it wasn't for them,
the country would see, the country would cease to exist. Basically, you wouldn't have food on the table. So, big respect to the truckers over there, Gary. And also keep doing what you're doing. You've kept late night radio alive, just as Art Bell would want it. And I love your format, and I think you've got it right.
Wow.
You've stuck to the roots of late night talk radio, and for that I thank you, and I thank you for having me on tonight.
Well, talk radio has changed, and somehow it's all hype. And I just don't like hype. I've been doing this, like I said, going on 50 years. And
Yeah.
I kind of like this format. And this format works. And, I interview people like we're sitting in the living room asking questions. And that's what makes it work.
That's exactly it, Gary. You don't need gimmicks. You just need good open-ended conversation. And hopefully that's what we've had tonight. And, it's been an absolute honor and pleasure to have shared the airways with you tonight. And I can't say in words how much I'm appreciative of that.
Now, is there any way if somebody wants to trace you down? Do you have a website or anything you want to share?
Yeah, I run the Ancient Astronaut Theory social media page on Facebook. I do write articles for magazines. Most notably, it was the Spacemen Lost to Time article within Phenomena. You can reach me through the Ancient Astronaut Theory. Very fortunate enough to have had the lead role in an upcoming film named Reboot, which focuses. I played Daniel, who basically lives his life over and over again, and he's trying to break the cycle. So that film should be generally released late 2023. It's got a few more festivals to go to. It's won 8 awards so far, so we're very, very lucky and fortunate.
Now, you mean he's like he just continues on, and it does it each time. Is he reborn, or what? How does it work?
Well, I would aptly name Reboot. He's actually rebooted, so he's born. He lives the same life over and over again, and he knows that he's going to die. So, but he remembers, if you know what I mean. So he remembers his previous life. So he is in essence. Ironically, what we've been speaking about tonight, he is immortal, and he's trying to break that cycle. Reboot, will be out late 2023. It did win Best Picture at the Sweet Democracy Film Awards in Cannes, France. So we were astonished with that award. There's a lot going on at the moment, Gary.
And how did you like acting?
I love acting, Gary. Don't get me wrong, but this is my passion. Research, and the search for knowledge. Before I let you go, do you believe that, I have a feeling this planet has been rebooted, just like the part you play in the movie. I think this planet has been rebooted several times. It goes to a certain level, and then either the Earth says, okay, I'm done, and wipes off civilization, or the civilization goes to a certain level and destroys itself, and we start over again. And funny enough, Gary, that's what Graham Hancock states. Obviously, you're aware of Graham Hancock's work.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what he states. Yeah, and I think he's a great. I've not met him, but a fantastic human being with some great ideas.
I think we're in another cycle of being rebooted.
I'm in agreement. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Aaron, I want to thank you so much for staying up out of the UK. What is your weather like? Have you noticed? I mean, here Antarctica, the main doomsday glacier is about ready to collapse. The sea level is rising. And, you're in an area, that is really, how can I say, susceptible to earth changes, because the water belt coming from the equator going up to where you're at is narrowing and slowing down. If that stalls, you guys could go into an ice age or a mini ice age just like that.
Well, Gary, I was going to bed in a minute, but you're going to keep me up now.
I'm sorry.
We are pretty much sitting ducks in England. We're a tiny little island in the middle of the ocean, aren't we? So the weather at the moment is cold. It's always cold in sort of January, February time. It is a cold time of the year. It starts to sort of get a bit warmer in March, April time, spring, and then obviously the summer hits. What's the weather like where you are, Gary?
The weather here is definitely changing. I mean, even like JC, didn't you have it like in the middle of winter when you should have been like in the 20s, JC, about a week or two ago? Weren't you in the 70s?
Exactly. Last Wednesday, it was 75 degrees, and this time of year, we're usually around 10, maybe 10 below for a 2-week period. It was 75, but don't fail. 2 days later, it was 25 and snowed.
I mean, this is weird. Even where I'm at, I'm in Washington State. 3 years ago, in the middle of April, we hit 90. And that broke the record period ever since they've been tracking it. But I've noticed that the climate is changing. And a lot of people, again, they're not absorbing that the earth is changing. And what I'm really concerned about, they're talking about the inner core of the earth, the magma has stopped or is about ready to stop. Yeah. And now scientists are claiming that they found another inner core in that core. So again, we don't know what's going to happen if it does totally stop. Does it stop and then reverse? Does it take a period of time? Or is that the cleansing period of Earth?
Yeah, that's what I mean, Gary. So, we've probably gone through many, many cycles. According to Alexander Koltepin, the geologist that I spoke about earlier, we've been through, countless number of cycles, and we've had countless numbers of intelligent life on this planet. That's obviously a talk for another day, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to let you get to bed. And again, I want to thank you for coming on, Aaron. I really enjoyed having you on. It gives people a thing, to think about. I'm not trying to say God doesn't exist.
No.
But I'm saying that what I think seriously, that we were visited by ETs, and naturally whatever humanoid was walking the earth, again, would look at them as gods. And they would be gods.
Absolutely, Gary. Yeah, it's all been very, very misinterpreted. So, yeah.
Okay, my friend, you have a good weekend that's coming up. And again, I enjoyed having you on.
You too, Gary. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor. So thank you. And the pleasure's been all mine.
Okay, my friend. We'll be right back after this short break. We're going to talk a little bit more about what is going on with, ETs and the government and all that stuff. So stay tuned. I'll be back with my producer and we'll kind of wrap the show up. So stay tuned.
My head feels like a fountain overflowing, going upside down. Giving me more heart, sky higher than mountains. Kind of love could turn me inside out. I wanna be yours. Take me to Saturn while I'm still tangled up in your sheets. I'm leaving traces of golden, yeah, when you're holding me. No, I probably sound like I'm losing my mind, but I swear every time you look in my eyes, my head feels like a fountain overflowing, going upside down. Giving me more heart, sky higher than mountains. Kind of love could turn me inside out. I wanna be yours. Ooh, forevermore. Wanna be yours. Ooh, wanna be yours. Wanna be yours. Don't need a light in the dark with you, it's a neon dream. I'm sleeping with all the sparks, yeah, you got a pull on me. No, I probably look like I'm losing my mind, but I swear every time your hands in mine, my head feels like a fountain overflowing, going.
Dignity for deeply forgetful people. How caregivers can meet the challenges of Alzheimer's disease by Stephen G. Post. How do we approach a deeply forgetful loved one so as to notice and affirm their continuing self-identity? For 3 decades, Stephen G. Post has worked around the world encouraging caregivers to become more aware of and find renewed hope in surprising expressions of selfhood, despite the challenges of cognitive decline. His books can be purchased from his website, www.stephengpost.com, on Amazon, or at your favorite bookstore. That's www.stephengpost.com. STEPHENGPOST.com. Order your copy today. Do you remember how great paranormal talk radio was in the 80s and 90s? Night Dreams Talk Radio brings back to you talk radio like you remember, with your host, Gary Anderson, broadcasting to you live from his secret compound deep in the great Northwest. Now, here's Gary.
Time. It's party time. It's party time.
Well, are you ready to go to the party there, JC? I am.
Yes, let's get this paranormal party started.
Yeah, if you really think about it, again, you think about the pyramids, you think about the, Incas, with their pyramids and all their civilizations all around the world, the Mayas and all that stuff. I mean, why did they get to a certain level of technology? And why did they disappear? Seriously.
Right. I've been pondering that since I was a young and seeing those documentaries about this stuff in the 70s. And you're exactly right. I think they've been rebooted, like you've always said. I think we get to a certain point, and I don't know if the technology gets too much and we get rebooted or some catastrophe or something always seems to happen. And I tell you, the signs kind of show that maybe something's brewing now.
Well, could it be ETs say, okay, we started the human race,
yeah,
so maybe they come back and that's why they monitor us. And I'm not saying they're here to help us, but maybe they go to a certain point and, they're disgusted with a human civilization. So they wipe it out and let it restart again.
It very well could be. And, one of the theories, too, you were talking about the Ark with the animals. What if the Ark was a big UFO instead of animals? They took DNA of all the animals. Think how more efficient that would be, to reboot, after they reboot, to start over.
Yeah, that is a very big possibility. But again, you think about how, if you go back even before biblical times, going back to cavemen, in the caves, they seen drawings of like stars, and then drawings of like men flying, men like in a spacesuit with a helmet. Why could they even fathom that if they never saw it?
Right. And, a lot of these scholars say, that was their like novels, their fiction. I don't believe that. I believe they wrote what they saw. And listen, some of them are very detailed. They look like what we call modern ETs or modern UFOs. It's right there on the cave art. That's 10,000-20,000 years old.
You try to tell me that if they just kind of seen it and then they draw it in their imagination. To think about that, I like to go back 150 years ago and have somebody draw the space shuttle. To draw some of the stuff that we have in our civilization, it never happened. So it tells me whatever they draw, they seen. And they looked at it as a god. That's why they drew it down. Or they were scared of it. One of the two.
Right. And, also many, especially the Southwestern Native American Indians, there's all kind of stuff they've got out there of UFOs. Looks like UFOs are aliens that they've drawn. And a lot of them talk about the ant people also.
Yeah, very interesting. No, at the beginning of the show, I mentioned about this Air Force pilot.
Yeah.
That is going to be really interesting, where a missile was fired and an ET supposedly destroyed it. And then there was like 10 other missiles that were neutralized. And he's going to go up before Congress and tell Congress about it. Again, I really think some people in Congress really know what's going on. And again, if you think at the beginning of the show, Stephen Greer, what he said, Dr. Greer, about, that SETI had a recording of ET communicating with SETI, tells me that we have been lied to so much. I just don't know who to believe. And, you see what's going on right now in the news. The balloons were UFOs. They didn't call them balloons at the start. It started out as a balloon, then all of a sudden it was a UFO. Then news media came involved in it. But then the government kind of played along with it, didn't they?
Oh, they did, especially after the spy one got halfway across the country or whatever. So then they were shooting anything down. God forbid if your kid's out there flying a balloon, allowed to get shot down. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, very, expensive to shoot a $12 balloon down. And then again, we accused China, but now we backtracked with China on that too. We called it a spy balloon, but now we said, well, we found because they shot it down, they found no proof it was a spy balloon.
Right. And the one balloon, when I know you can appreciate this, I believe there was a group of sidebanders and they put it in the jet stream. So they like an antenna so they could get around the world to talk, further.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. But I tell you, guess what happens? People overreact. Again, Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer said, the TikTok, okay, they weren't anything off world. It was our own skunk works.
Yep. I seen him say that live 2 days ago. He went into it. He's got whistleblowers, people on the inside, and this goes back with him 30-some years, and that's what they were. They weren't off-world. And listen, what a better prelude with all this stuff leading up. If they did want to do a false flag, they're laying the groundwork for it. Think about it.
Well, the government offered him a few $2 billion. Yeah, $2 billion. Did come on board with them. You know why? Because they didn't want him talking. So they thought they could bribe him. Hey, you come on board with us, we'll give you $2 billion.
Right. And, other thing, too, he said there's been somewhere around 100 inventors that come up with things that pretty much is close to having free energy. Also, he said that we've had anti-gravity for almost 70, 80 years, but they don't put it out there. It will solve all mankind's problems, but they want to sit on it,
They don't want us to have it. Well, who's our guest tomorrow? What are we going to be talking about, JC?
Oh, man, tomorrow's guest going to be good. She is Alana Freeland. Now, she has been a researcher for the past 30 years on to the conspiracy with chemtrails, weaponized geoengineering and weaponizing of the environment and the weather. She can get into the details of this stuff about what's in the air, all this stuff. Man, it's going to be fantastic.
Well, there's a lot of speculation that chemtrails, and it still could be going on, is actually to shorten human life, too, and create chaos to the human society. So we'll find all that out tomorrow. Well, everybody have a good one. We will catch you, on the other side of the universe tomorrow at 7 p.m. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. Give us a thumbs up. Let people know about us. We will catch you tomorrow, so everybody stay out of trouble.
I'm losing my mind for the sake of love. I've been trying to reveal it, what I've been so afraid of. Your coldness makes my heart go weak, so numb that I can barely speak. This pain keeps water in the sea. If I weren't so desperate to be free, I'd keep my distance, babe. The more that I know about you, the more that I want you, baby. They say that good love will yield the best from me. I know it to be true. This moment won't last forever. No remedies whatsoever. These feelings we choose to pass on for lesser love. You know it too.
Because this is enough years after it happened. A few years ago, there was a show called Coast to Coast with Art Bell. And it was on the cover of Time magazine, and I was one of his favorite guests. And when I'd be on that show, it really lit things up at certain agencies. And one time I was on his show a few years back, towards the end of his career there, and this issue came up, and I said, well, I have a source high up in SETI that confirms to me that they in fact have received interplanetary signals, but in a kind of phased, not normal array. It was kind of a pulsed array, and that it was kept secret and covered up. And the SETI people were furious. Subsequently, Seth Shostak got on the show and just said, well, Dr. Aaron knew what he's talking about, and he probably talked to some volunteer computer operator, because we have all this network of volunteers. What Art Bell didn't know, and what Seth Shostak didn't know, which I'm going to say now because it's enough water gone under the bridge, is that the guy who told me that was the founder of the SETI project and the Drake equation, Dr. Drake. He told me that they had that contact. Moreover, a man who had been one of Carl Sagan's best friends, the best man at his wedding,